economy is in a fragile position when it comes to weathering those headwinds, thanks to the crippling burdens imposed on businesses and households by this Labour government. Today's bills have risen for millions of families by more than £1,000. That, of course, affects pensioners too, who face rising energy bills while winter fuel payments have been snatched away. Working families will pay the price for all of this. While the jobs tax eats away at their pay packets, Labour are also stoking inflation. The OBR now expect inflation this year to be more than double their estimate at the last Conservative budget in March of last year.
Sky News caught Keir Starmer in what might be his most revealing moment yet. During a heated interview, the Prime Minister claimed Britons are better off under his government, citing the national living wage increase of £1,400. But what happens when those claims collide with official forecasts? The Office of Budget Responsibility tells a completely different story, one where people will actually feel worse before they feel better. Was this a deliberate attempt to mislead millions, or is our Prime Minister dangerously disconnected from economic reality? Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video. When Keir Starmer appeared on Sky News, he painted a rosy picture of Britain's economic future. He confidently declared that Britons would be better off thanks to the national living wage increase, which would put an extra £1,400 in the pockets of millions. With unwavering certainty, he listed additional factors supporting his optimistic outlook.
Most people, they would say the cost of living crisis is ongoing and they feel the pressure financially. That's why it's so important that we make good on our pledge that people would feel better off. That's alongside the other work we've done. Interest rates have been cut 3 times since we've had a Labour government, so anybody with a mortgage knows that the rates are coming down. And of course, on average, and the national living wage going up today by an average of £1,400 is going to affect millions of people. So in their pay packet this month, and obviously for months to come, they will now be getting more money in.
3 interest rate cuts under Labour's watch and wages rising faster than prices. His delivery was smooth, rehearsed, and designed to instill confidence in the government's economic stewardship. But there's a problem, a significant problem. Starmer's upbeat assessment stands in stark contradiction to the forecast from his own government's economic watchdog, the Office for Budget Responsibility. The OBR's data tells a completely different story, one where Britons may actually feel worse economically before they feel better. This isn't a minor discrepancy, it's a fundamental contradiction that raises serious questions about either the Prime Minister's understanding of economic realities or his willingness to present them accurately to the public. What makes this interview particularly revealing is the interviewer's persistent technique. Rather than accepting Starmer's deflections or allowing him to control the narrative, the Sky News interviewer pressed him specifically on the contradiction between his claims and the OBR's forecasts. When Starmer attempted to pivot back to the national living wage increase, saying £1,400 a year better off under the national living wage that's coming into force today, the interviewer skillfully redirected to the broader economic picture the OBR was presenting.
Wages are going up now more quickly than prices, so I'm not denying there are
you
bills.
acknowledge people are going to be feeling
I
it
acknowledge
still.
that with bills coming in, people see that rise, and that is a pressure. Making sure that interest rates are coming down, not going up, that makes a big difference for people. Wages going up higher than prices, but that is why it's so important we deliver on the national living wage to make sure people are better off. £1,400, quite a significant amount of money for millions of workers.
The interviewer's approach exposed the gap between political messaging and economic reality. Instead of relying on opinion or partisan talking points, they used the government's own economic forecasting body as the standard against which to measure Starmer's claims. This forced the Prime Minister into the uncomfortable position of either acknowledging the discrepancy or appearing to dismiss the credibility of his own government's economic analysts. Meanwhile, Mel Stride, in his critique of the budget, offered a starkly different assessment. He argued that Labour's policies would lead to Britons becoming poorer, not richer. The crippling burdens imposed on businesses and households would, in his view, offset any gains from wage increases. Stride specifically highlighted the jobs tax, impact on working families' pay packets, and rising living costs.
I've looked at that forecast, and the OBR, the Office of Budget Responsibility, actually says that people are going to feel worse off before they feel better off, and that all of that 500 quid at the end of the Parliament could wipe out anyway. You know that.
The forecast that on average people will feel £500 better off per year. We're bearing down on this. Well, Beth, look, £1,400 a year better off under the national living wage. That's real. That's coming into force today. I'm here at Nationwide. They get paid on April the 20th.
Practical concerns that resonate with everyday voters feeling the economic squeeze. Perhaps most damaging to Starmer's narrative is the OBR's revised inflation forecast. The watchdog now expects inflation this year to be more than double its previous estimate from the last Conservative budget in March. This dramatic upward revision undermines Starmer's claim about wages outpacing prices. Even if wages are nominally increasing, higher than expected inflation means those gains could be quickly eroded by rising prices for essentials like food, fuel, and housing. This contradiction isn't a one-time slip, it's part of a pattern. Tracking Starmer's economic messaging since taking office reveals a shifting narrative that adapts to political necessity rather than economic reality. When convenient, he acknowledges economic challenges to blame the previous government. When politically advantageous, he pivots to optimism despite contradictory data from his own economic experts. The question naturally arises, is this contradiction the result of economic incompetence or deliberate misinformation? Does Starmer not understand the OBR's forecasts, or is he purposefully presenting a more favorable picture than the data supports? Neither option inspires confidence in his economic leadership at a time when clear-eyed assessment is desperately needed. What makes this moment particularly significant is how the interviewer used the government's own data against them. Rather than engaging in ideological debates, the interviewer simply highlighted the contradiction between what Starmer was claiming and what his government's economic experts were forecasting. This approach cut through political spin and focused on factual discrepancies that Starmer struggled to reconcile. The economic contradictions extend beyond just inflation forecasts. The OBR's outlook suggests that many of the economic benefits Starmer promises may be delayed, uncertain, or offset by other negative factors. Yet his messaging consistently emphasizes immediate positive impacts without acknowledging these complicating factors. A selective presentation that borders on misleading. As we conclude, the chasm between Starmer's rosy economic rhetoric and the harsh reality painted by the OBR's forecasts should concern every British citizen. This isn't merely about differing interpretations of data, it's about governmental transparency when facing economic headwinds. The looming specter of Trump's threatened tariffs adds another layer of urgency to this discussion. When pressed on these potential tariffs, Starmer merely stated the government is working hard on an economic deal, with all options on the table. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, officials are likely scrambling to prepare for massive tariffs that could further strain British households. In these uncertain times, the public deserves honesty, not hollow optimism.